How do we light the island? It's the money shot. It is the most visible fixture in your entire house. It's the thing everyone's going to see. They're going to sit around this island. So I'm agonizing about what to choose. Picking a fixture is often the hardest thing that we do in consultations because there's so many rules. There's so many choices. So how do you figure out what to do? I mean, you need the right style, you need the right size, you need to put it in the right place. So what are the rules? What are the mistakes? And how do you do it right? That's what we're going to do today. I've got 7 really common mistakes. Maybe a bonus if you stick around. So let's get to it. First up, when I have consultations with clients for lighting, and they talk about how overwhelmed they are and how confused, and they found this fixture and they love it, but they just don't know if it's going to fit and how many they need to order and what size, and you get the overwhelm. I'm sure you feel it too if you're shopping for them. I know I do. There are so many choices out there. I mean, linear pendants, there's swirly things, there's domes, there's glass bowls, there's shades, there's anything you can imagine you can make into a light. So what's appropriate for your kitchen island? How are you going to light it so that it fits in with your house, so it's appropriate to what you've chosen? Because I fall in love with a lot of light fixtures when I go to a lighting store, but there's no way in hell that they're going to work in this house. You have to know, what is your plan? What do you intend to do in the space? What are the other finishes? What does the house tell you is appropriate? Like, this is a bungalow. It's a 1970s bungalow. It doesn't tell me big 2-story chandeliers. I don't have the ceiling for it. The architecture, your windows, your doors, your cabinetry, those things will help you to make choices, to narrow your search, to define your style. You got to have a plan. You got to know what the light's going to do for you. So is it going to be task lighting over here, over my sink? So a nice little directional light that's going to hit my sink. Is it going to be sconces by the range here, which are probably, you know, with a recessed can hitting the countertop, are really decorative. What is the demand? So I don't need a lot of lumens out of these sconces if I have recessed cans. What do you need from the light? Over here, I got no other lights. All the recessed lights, all the other fixtures are around the perimeter. So this island fixture has got to light up the entire space. I'm thinking about something long and linear for here. Vegas, baby. That's what it's like walking into a lighting store. There are fixtures everywhere. You can't tell scale or size or dimensions of anything because they've got 9 million pendants and chandeliers and crystals shining in your face, delighting and sparkling you, but not helping you make a decision. So never go to the showroom first. You want to go there and wander around? That's great. But do not go there intending to buy a light until you've done your homework. First, look online, get the reviews. Buying a light fixture is like dating these days. Swipe right, swipe left. Read the reviews, read the descriptions. I have ordered very expensive light fixtures and they've shown up and they're plastic. Read the description. You got to know what it's made of, where it comes from, who's making it, what's the lead time. When you start to do your homework online, it helps you to recognize brands that you see all the time. So as I'm scrolling through, I'm going to get familiar with brand names. So I'm going to know Hubbard & Forge carries these kinds of lights, and they're in this price range. If you've ever been to Las Vegas, you know that first trip over the hill, seeing all those lights in the middle of the desert, and then you get down street level, and there are lights everywhere. It is overstimulation at its best and worst. That's kind of what a lighting store is like. So I don't recommend you start there. I want you to start with your plan, and I want you to start with your SEO words, your search engine optimization words. So those are the words that describe the kinds of things you're looking for. So if you're looking for farmhouse, transitional, modern, contemporary, I want natural, I want brown, I want gold. Those are your SEO words. You're going to type them in Google, in Houzz, in Pinterest, on lighting design websites. See what's out there. Get a feel for all the brands, for the prices they fall in, the kinds of styles that you can tend to count on them for, and the different finishes that they offer. Once you've done your thorough investigation online, you're ready to go to the showroom. But go there to look, to touch, to get an idea of the quality of brands, the color of finishes, very important if you're trying to match finishes with other brands or other lines of lighting. And when it comes to the finishes, you're ready for the next mistake. And that's not bringing samples with you to the showroom. If you have other fixtures, handles, hardware that's already purchased, that's already in the mix, bring that with you when you go shopping. Have it in your trunk. Be able to go run out and compare those golds. Because I was just in the showroom picking out shower glass. There were 16 different shades of gold. Bring your samples with you. A computer monitor will never be true. Trust me, after ordering a very expensive bolt of blue satin that came green, never trust your monitor. I'd hate to say that this house has no architectural style, but it has no architectural style. It's not a Georgian, it's not a colonial. It's kind of a bungalow, so I'm going off of that. There are so many spectacular lights out there, and when you go and look at them, you can fall in love with all of them. But they may not be appropriate to your home. So you need to consider, at least, the style, the architecture of your home, of your furnishings, of your cabinetry, of your doors and your windows before you buy lights. Because if I tried to throw some crazy spinning LED Sputnik looking thing in here, it really doesn't fit with our vibe. It doesn't fit with the furniture that I own. It doesn't fit with the style that this house lends itself to. So look at your overall design feel, the style of the house, the windows, the doors, and choose appropriately. And when you don't, do it deliberately and do it knowing that you're breaking the rules. Number 5 in the list of mistakes is a biggie, and that has to do with the math. That has to do with how high you place that light, how far apart they are, and how many you choose. Now, I was on Facebook. I go in these Facebook groups, home remodeling, custom home building, barn dominiums. I like to get ideas, see what people are struggling with, give them a little free advice. I saw this post about a girl, and she was agonizing about 2 pendants over her island, and she said her designer had told her that you had to do 3 and that 2 was just wrong. Now, I don't know what planet that designer came from or what rules she's referring to, but there are no rules when it comes to how many, where you put them. There are common sense measurements that you want to consider, but there are no rules. If you want 1 pendant, do 1 pendant. You want 2, have at it. You want 3, 4, 5, it's your kitchen, but they have to fit. For instance, I've got basically a 4x8, 4.5 by 8 foot island. I want to leave a little bit in on both ends so that when I'm working here, whatever light is here, even though I won't lean in and hit it with my head, I don't want to feel its presence. So I want to leave it in. Sometimes you'll see 12 inches. I think that's too little. I like 18 to 24 inches off the edge, both edges, because down at that end, someone will be sitting there. When they stand up, you don't want to have that light right in their face. It's not going to hit you, but you still don't want to feel its presence right there. So an 8 foot island, 4 feet of lighting space, 4 to 5 feet of lighting space I have in the middle to use. It's 4 feet wide, so anything 12 to 15 inches wide. So that gives me a foot or so in, 15 inches in to lean over and to work here. Now, as far as how much space in between, it really depends. I wish there was a formula, and you'll see them online, 18, 24, 30 inches apart. That's the rule. Is it? Have you seen the light fixtures that are out there today? They could be enormous, and they need a little bit more room next to the one next to it. Or they could be solid, or they could be glass and have a small presence. So in addition to the size, When you're looking at fixtures, you have to consider the visual weight of something. So a glass bowl and a solid dome pendant have different visual weight. They take up more space. They block the view. You have to consider that. Now, what I've done in the past when clients are really having a hard time visualizing it is go to Michael's, go to Hobby Lobby, go buy a foam ball, put it on a string, and hang it the diameter of the pendants that you want so that you can actually feel how it feels. Now, as far as how far off the countertop, if I have to tell you this again, 30 to 36 inches. That's it. 30 to 36 inches is about right. Now, depending on your light, depending on how tall you are and how tall your ceilings are, that's something you've got to consider because in here, we have only 8-foot ceilings. So what that means is I have a 3-foot countertop and I want those pendants to be 30 to 36 inches. Let's call it 36 because my family's tall, aside from me. Up to 6 feet, 3 feet for that, 3 feet for the space. That means I only have 2 feet for whatever fixture is going to hang there. That means 2 feet for not only the fixture itself, whatever that height is, but the chain that gets it up to the ceiling. So be mindful of your ceiling height when you're choosing a fixture because I was in the store today with these big, glorious fixtures. They would be touching the ceiling. They would be in my attic. They won't fit. Do yourself a favor and go to the lighting store with expectations about what your space can fit before you get there so that you don't get carried away like a kid in a candy store. All right, next up, let's see. I don't know if any of this is going to be useful. So depending on the fixture that you choose, you want to leave probably 24 to 30 inches between the fixtures. So if you have this enormous shade and you're measuring 30 inches between each 30-inch shade, they're going to be touching. So you have to use good judgment about the size you choose and the space that you have. The biggest mistake of all when it comes to the numbers is, first of all, keeping it at human level so that we can light the people. The second mistake is listening to idiots online. You have to use common sense. You have to look at the lights that you've chosen, how you want it to light the countertop below, and then space it accordingly. There are no correct rules. There are no absolutes in lighting design, and anyone online that tells you that there are. Mistake number 6 is one that I am worried about. In most kitchens these days, I'm seeing not only an island light, but maybe some sconces beside the hood, a pendant hanging over the sink, some under cabinet light. There's a lot going on in a single room. One of the biggest mistakes is not making them all talk to each other. They're in the same room. They need to speak to each other. So whatever finish or shape or style that this one is, something about these two should talk to this. This is my dilemma. I don't know whether to do sconces here, a pendant here, and a pendant over the island. They've all got to talk to each other. In addition, I've got the additional problem, blessing, challenge, of a window that looks out on my dining room. So this fixture and whatever fixture I put over the dining room are all going to be visible in the same space. That's a lot going on. So when you choose your island lighting, think about all of the other fixtures that are going on and make sure that they're going to the same party, that they have the same finish, the same shape, they are of the same time period, they speak to the same design style so that they make sense because they're all in the same room. If I had some crazy circular LED pendant over here and some schoolhouse milk glass and some who knows what over there, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to the house and they don't talk to each other. So make sure all of your lights are talking. Lucky 7 is a really strange one for me, and it's one that's coming up a lot in my consultations lately, and it's no pendant, no lighting over the island at all, except perhaps recessed lighting of some kind. And there are some inherent problems with that. When you have an island here, let's just imagine, and I'm back here by the perimeter cabinets, if there is nothing in between you and me to stop my eye, the room seems smaller. my eye goes right to the back wall. So when you have a pendant, it gives a little bit of rhythm, a little bit of definition to different spaces in your kitchen, in the room. It doesn't, your eye doesn't immediately go to that back wall. The other thing that a pendant light does is it gives human light at eye level to the people standing around here. If we're lit from above, it looks awful. It is not a pleasant space to be. So if you want to opt out of any kind of hanging light over your island, or if you have a cooktop in the island, that becomes a problem, you've got to supplement with lights that are at a human level, that are not all coming from above, because it's not a good look. I forgot I had a bonus. Lighting is like jewelry. So, like Coco Chanel says, spin around once in the mirror and then take something off. If you have several different fixtures that are competing for your attention, take one of them out. Make one the showstopper. The other ones can be good wingmen. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.